There are 10,000 ways to die in the 41st millennium, but only one way to truly live, by stealing one more breath from the jaws of a universe that wants you dead. Down here, in the lungs of Necromunda, every breath tastes of rust, promethium fumes, and the bitter tang of ash that drifts down from the Hive's burning crown. The air itself is poison, but it's the only air I've ever known. We don't breathe to live, we breathe to endure, and that endurance is what makes a ganger. My name's better left unspoken. Names get you killed in the Underhive, whether by rival scum or by the enforcers who grind us beneath their shock mauls. I'm a ganger of House Orlok, road warriors turned chain gang survivors, scavenging steel and blood in the sumplights. If you crave the Emperor's sanitized histories, close your ears now. But if you want to know what it's really like, smash that subscribe rune, because survival under Necromunda's shadows is no sermon. It's a curse you earn with every scar. The Hive breathes like a dying god, its machines older than memory. Vast pistons hammer somewhere in the deep, sending tremors up through the ferrocrete like a heartbeat. The walls sweat with moisture and grime. Steel gantries twist into the dark above, wrapped in tangles of cable that hum like hungry insects. Light flickers here and there, powered by failing conduits that should have been scrapped before the Great Crusade itself. And in the shadows between those flickers, I see eyes. Always eyes. Some human, some not. Life in the Underhive isn't measured in years, but in days, maybe even hours. An average hive rat lives longer than most gangers, but that's the trade. We burn hot and brutal, carving our names into rusted bulkheads and hoping some scrap scribe remembers us before his lungs give out. When I was a juve, barely strong enough to hold a stubber, my initiation was simple. Kill a rival, scrip his corpse, and carry his weapon back to the gang leader without dying along the way. I succeeded, though the scar across my neck still burns when I think about it. A ganger's scars are his ledger, every mark a debt to death that hasn't yet been paid. The first sound I ever loved was the hum of a lasgun's power pack charging. The second was the crack of a bolt shell detonating inside a man's chest. They're not sounds of life, they're reminders that I still draw breath. Competence here isn't optional. A shaky aim, a slow reload, a stumble in the ash wastes, those get you carved into chum for the sump beasts. I learned to strip my auto pistol blindfolded, to reload a stubber in the dark, to tell the difference between a friend's footsteps and a rival's stalk on a metal gantry 2 levels above. Tonight, as I sit hunched in a half-collapsed hab block with my brothers, the Hive feels different. The sump rivers hiss louder, carrying toxins older than my bloodline. The ash dust storm above rattles the sheets of plasteel that pass for a roof. The vox crackles faintly with whispers, probably static, probably not. And somewhere deep below, where the tunnels have no names, something moves. A juve with too much confidence and not enough scars nudges me. He asks if I've heard the rumors about gangers vanishing, whole crews swallowed in the dark. I tell him rumors are for nobles with the time to dream. Down here, if someone's missing, they're either dead or worse, enslaved to a guild caravan. Either way, it doesn't matter. What matters is the turf we hold, the ammo in our packs, and the next fight waiting around the corner. But in truth, I've heard the same whispers. I've seen blood trails with no bodies, footprints that stop mid-step, like the Hive itself devoured them. Survival in Necromunda isn't just about gangers and bullets. It's about the Hive, this monstrous, rusting world we live inside. It shifts, it hungers, it remembers. Sometimes the lights fail for no reason, and you hear machinery grind that no living soul recalls activating. Sometimes you find a tunnel where none should be, leading down. always down, to places where even the enforcers won't follow. That's the Underhive secret. It's alive, and we're just the parasite scratching at its lungs. So I sit here, knife across my knee, pistol oiled and loaded, watching the shadows. My brothers laugh, share Amasek stolen from a guild shipment, boast about kills and women they'll never touch again. But I don't join in. I listen. I smell the oil, the sweat, the acrid stink of fear no laughter can hide. And I wonder if tonight the Hive will choose one of us to claim. Because on Necromunda, you don't really live. You just fight not to be the next one to vanish into the dark.
Territory. That's the word that makes and breaks every life in the Underhive. A strip of Pharaoh Creek corridor, a sump hole that drips cleaner water than the sludge river, a forgotten ammo cache hidden in the ductwork. It doesn't matter what it is. If it's ground you can stand on, it's worth killing for. And tonight, blood will pay the rent for our corner of the Hive. I can smell it before we even make contact. Gun oil, sweat, the copper tang of old blood rubbed into rags. A rival gang's been pushing into our turf, scavers tied to House Goliath, all vat-grown muscle and chain-axe arrogance. They've been bleeding us, picking off juves, torching our supply caches. That ends tonight. Our leader, Kargan, thick-shouldered, scarred from scalp to jaw, gathers us in the dark beneath a broken lumen strut. He doesn't give speeches, not his style. Just loads his heavy stubber, spits into the dust and growls, "No one crosses Orlok steel." We move like shadows across the gantries. Competence isn't just a skill here, it's survival. Jarek, our best shot, checks his long las, adjusting the dial with a thumb he's missing half the nail on. He doesn't need words, he's already chosen the best vantage, already lined up the first kill in his head. Two others, brothers and all but blood, carry the close range kit. Sawed-off shotguns, hand axes, a chain that still drips from its last victim. Me, I'm the point man, auto pistol at my hip, knife ready. We know they're close when the bats scatter, flapping away from the upper gantries. Goliath boys don't do subtle, too heavy-footed, too drunk on their own lab-brewed testosterone. Sure enough, I catch sight of them. 3 slabs of vat flesh lumbering down the walkway, laughing like it's already their turf. Behind them, 2 Juves try to look mean, failing under the weight of guns too big for their arms. Kargan gives the signal. The Hive holds its breath. Then Jarek's long las cracks, silent but deadly. The first slab drops, skull burned through clean, the back of his head painting the steel wall. That's the cue. I surge forward, auto pistol spitting fire. The Juve scream as rounds chew the ferrocrete around them. One goes down, clutching his leg, wailing like a sumper-rat in a trap. The other turns to run, but the chain whips out, hooks his throat and yanks him back screaming into the dark. The slabs roar, chain axes snarling as they charge. The walkway shakes under their bulk. I duck a swing that would have taken my head clean off, feel the teeth of the weapon scrape sparks from the wall behind me. My knife finds a gap in the armor under his arm, sinking deep. He bellows, grabs my shoulder, nearly crushes it. But then Kargan's stubber roars, tearing chunks out of the brute's chest until there's nothing left but meat. The last one doesn't run. They never run. Goliath pride. He smashes through 2 of my brothers like they're made of paper, blood spraying, bones crunching. I roll aside, come up with the auto pistol and empty the mag into his back. He staggers, stumbles, and Jarek finishes him with a las bolt clean through the spine. The walkway falls silent but for our breath. One of ours is down, leg torn open, blood pooling fast. I rip cloth from a dead rival, tie it tight around the wound. He grits his teeth, nods at me. Still alive, still fighting. That's all that matters. We strip the bodies quickly. Ammo, weapons, anything worth selling to the guilders. I take a chain axe for myself. It's heavy, clumsy, but there's something about the roar of those teeth that makes enemies hesitate, and hesitation wins fights. As we drag the corpses to the sump, dumping them for the rats and worse, I catch sight of something strange. The dead Goliath's eyes, they're wrong. Too black, too glossy, like the darkness of the hive pooled inside them. I chalk it up to chem use, maybe some vat-grown defect. But as the bodies sink, I swear the sump ripples, like something beneath is feeding. We leave quick, turf defended, blood for blood. But the hive doesn't let victories come free. On Necromunda, you don't just fight your enemies, you fight the hive itself, and it never loses. Still with us in the darkness? Hit that like button if this tale chills your soul.
You'd think spilling blood would bring peace, at least for a few nights. That's the lie every Juve believes after their first kill. But a Necromunda, blood is like promethium on open flame. It draws eyes. It brings the houses sniffing around like carrion beasts. And when the houses take interest in your turf, survival gets harder. We hear about it first through whispers on the guild routes. A caravan comes in light, half its guards missing, their bodies never recovered. Then the guilders stop buying from certain traders, too afraid to cross someone higher up the chain. Before long, the word filters down to us. The houses are moving pieces, drawing lines on maps none of us will ever see. But the consequences, we feel those sharp as a blade across the throat. House Orlok isn't the worst master a ganger could have. We get steel, some respect, a trickle of supplies. But we also get orders, and orders mean death. Kargan gathers us after a long patrol, the sweat still cooling on our backs, and tells us bluntly, the Goliaths won't stop. Escher's sniffing around too. We hold or we're dead, and the house doesn't forgive weakness. That's the thing. To the houses, we're disposable. Names on a ledger, credits to be spent. You can win a dozen fights, bleed yourself dry in the sump, but one lost scrap and they'll write you off. Worse than that, they'll make an example of you. I remember once, still a Juve then, watching a whole gang strung up along a gantry by their own chains. Corpses swaying in the toxic draft. Their crime? Losing too much turf, too fast. No one remembers their name now, but their shadows still hang in the steel when the lumen fires hit just right. And yet, part of me feels pride when the house notices us. Pride is dangerous in Necromunda, but it's all we have. If Orlok is paying attention, it means we matter. Means our enemies matter too. That night, as we sit around the fire barrel, I noticed how the others react. Jarek keeps his rifle close, eyes scanning every shadow, as if expecting enforcers to storm in. The wounded ganger from the Goliath scrap, Rin, grits his teeth as I tighten the bandage on his leg, refusing painkillers because he doesn't want to look weak. The Jews whisper to each other about Escher blades laced with toxins, about Goliath brutes twice the size of men, about ghost gangs that come out of the dark. I don't tell them to shut up. Fear keeps them sharp. Then the vox crackles again, not static this time, an enforcer voice, cold and clipped. They're announcing curfew, warning all gangers to stay off the trade routes until house orders change. Everyone exchanges looks. None of us will obey.
A curfew in the Underhive is just an excuse for arbitrators to start filling body bags. And yet, hearing that voice, so calm and so sure, sends a chill down my spine.
I lay awake long after the others sleep. The hive groans like an old beast, steel bones shifting under weight no engineer remembers calculating. Somewhere above, machinery rumbles, sending dust sifting down like ash. I think about Kargan's words, "We hold or we're dead." The house wants us alive only so long as we bleed for them. But there's something else gnawing at the edges of my mind. The black eyes of that Goliath corpse, glossy as polished stone. The ripple in the sump when his body sank. I tell myself it's nothing. That defects. Trick of the light. The hive plays tricks, always has. Still, I can't shake the feeling we're not just fighting other gangs anymore. Something deeper stirs in the Underhive, and the houses aren't ready for it. But maybe, just maybe they sense it. Maybe that's why the rules are changing. By dawn, I've made my decision. If the house wants us to bleed, fine, but I'll bleed on my own terms, in my own way. And if something else waits in the dark, I'll face it blade in hand, because down here you don't get to choose your death, but you can damn well make sure it's one the hive remembers. The shadows lengthen. Territory means blood, and blood always means more shadows.
In the Underhive, currency isn't measured in credits or thrones alone. It's measured in flesh, fire, and the desperation that drives men to trade both. The Guilders run the lifelines, and every gang, no matter their pride, bends to their scales. Food, water, ammo, chems, those aren't resources, they're chains. And the Guilders make sure the chains stay tight around our throats. Kargan sends us on a trade run. Not glamorous, not bloody, not yet. Just a deal to keep our ammo stocks filled, our wounded patched, and our bellies barely full enough to keep standing. We meet the Guilder reps at a sump crossing, where rusted pipes drip like rotting organs into pools of stagnant black. They come with their usual entourage, servitors shuffling under heavy crates, bodyguards with gilded masks, and a vox drone that repeats every word like a priest reciting litanies. The lead Guilder is a fat man named Brick. I've seen him before. His face is pockmarked, his hands too soft for the Underhive, his eyes like a rat sizing up a corpse. He smiles with yellow teeth as we approach, but there's no warmth in it, just hunger. Ammo, stub rounds, a handful of las packs, some stim for your wounded, he drawls, voice thick with mockery. But prices have shifted. We all know what that means. The houses squeeze, the Guilders squeeze harder. Brick wants more than creds. He wants leverage. Kargan negotiates, voice low and dangerous, but Breck doesn't flinch. He names his price, 2 crates of reclaimed promethium we've been guarding, plus one of our Jews for labor. The Jew's face goes pale, but he hides it behind clenched teeth. For a moment, I think Kargan's going to put a stubber round through Breck's fat skull. His finger twitches on the trigger. The bodyguards shift, weapons half raised. Tension, like a live wire, hums between us. Then Kargan spits at Breck's feet, growls, 1 crate, and the boy stays. Take it or rot. Breck laughs, high and ugly, but he nods. The deal is struck. The bodyguards lower their weapons, and the servitors shuffle forward with crates of ammo and chems.
We exchange quickly, the air so thick with hostility you could cut it with a chainsword. As we retreat, I glance back. Brick still watching us, still smiling, and I swear I see something flicker across his face when he thinks we can't see. Fear. The Guilders don't fear gangers, not really. They've got enforcers in their pockets, houses at their backs. No, Breck's fear was aimed deeper, toward the tunnels yawning behind him. On the way back, Ren finally breaks the silence. They're scared, Guilders. Fat bastards never get scared. His voice is hoarse from blood loss, but steady. Jarek nods. Means something's coming, and it ain't Goliaths. The Juve, the same one Breck nearly claimed, mutters a prayer to the Emperor under his breath. Not out of faith, out of habit. Down here, prayers are like bullets. You fire them off in case one hits. We move through forgotten tunnels, crates heavy on our shoulders. The air stinks of burnt oil and fungus, thick enough to choke. And then, far behind us, the sound of something moving echoes through the pipes. Not boots, not wheels, something else. Kargan raises a hand, signaling silence. We listen. Nothing but dripping water. But the hive doesn't make sounds without reason. We push faster, reaching our hideout just as the lumen strips flicker to life overhead. For once, I feel relief unloading crates into the shadows of our bolt hole. Ammo, stims, food. Enough to last another week. Another chance to keep breathing. But even as we settle, sharpening blades, checking guns, passing around the chems, I can't shake the image of Breck's fear. The Guilders know something. Something moving beneath us. Something they can't profit from, can't control. And in Necromunda, when the Guilders are scared, it means the rest of us are already damned. The tension builds. Subscribe to witness more tales from the Dark Millennium.
When the enforcers come, you don't hear them at first. That's the real terror of it. They move like steel ghosts through the hive, boots silent on gantries, vox commands whispering in their helmets. One moment the tunnels are quiet, the next you're staring down the cold black eyes of a shock mall. We knew they'd come. The Guilders make sure of it. Breck probably had his vox drones sending signals before we'd even hauled the crates away. You can buy and sell anything in Necromunda. Ammo, food, even flesh. But the enforcers always take their cut, and if they think you've shorted them, they take it in blood. It starts with the knock. Not polite, never polite. 3 thuds of metal on metal, echoing through the hab like a death knell. Kargan freezes, mid-cleaning his stubber. We all go still, listening. Another 3 knocks, harder, louder. The Juves grip their guns too tight, hands shaking. Rhine, still wounded, mouths a curse. Jarek slides into position near a broken viewport, Longlass aimed at the shadows outside. The door crashes inward before Kargan gives the order. Enforcers flood the room, black armor gleaming with oil, visors blank, shock malls buzzing with caged lightning. Their leader carries a bolt pistol, pristine and polished, the kind of weapon only nobles or their dogs ever touch. His voice is vox distorted, every word like a sermon of iron. By decree of Lord Helmwar, this gang is under audit. Lay down arms, submit for questioning. Audit. The word's a joke. An audit means chains, cages, disappearances. Sometimes you come back, broken and limping. Sometimes you don't come back at all. Kargan doesn't flinch. He raises his stubber, voice low but firm. This turf is Orloc's. We pay our tithe. You've no claim here. The enforcer doesn't argue. He just lifts his pistol, aims it square at Kargan's chest. That's when Jarek fires. The long las beam pierces the enforcer's helmet, frying circuits, burning through flesh. The body collapses without a sound. For a heartbeat, silence reigns. Then the room explodes into violence. Shock malls crackle as they swing. One Juve screams as lightning arcs through him, body convulsing before he collapses smoking. I fire my auto pistol, shots sparking off carapace armor, one lucky round finding a joint at the neck. The enforcer staggers, drops, but another takes his place instantly. Kargan's stubber roars, chewing through armor, tearing limbs, filling the hab with smoke and blood. Rhine, half lame, still finds the strength to hack a man down with his axe, teeth bared in a snarl. I move fast, knife in hand, ducking under a maul strike that sizzles inches from my skull. The blade finds a gap in the enforcer's thigh plate, sinking deep. He grunts, swings wildly, and I shove him into the fire barrel. His armor hisses as flames lick across him, screams muffled by the vox. It's chaos, pure blood-soaked chaos. But for once, we don't break. We fight like men with nothing left to lose. And then, as sudden as they came, the enforcers pull back. 2 dead, 3 wounded, one of ours burned, another Juve gone cold on the floor. Kargan spits on the floor, chest heaving. He growls, "That was a warning. Next time, they'll come with fire." We bury the Juves in the sump. No prayers, no rites. The Emperor doesn't hear us down here, not through leagues of ash and steel. But as I watch the bodies sink, I can't shake the thought. The enforcers didn't just come for tribute. They came because something else is moving, something bigger than gangs, bigger than turf. If they're scared enough to audit Orloc's steel, what's waiting in the tunnels below? Comment your theories below. What corruption stalks our heroes?
The Underhive is never quiet. Even in the dead of shift cycle, there's always the drip of water through rusted pipes, the scurrying of sump rats in the walls, the endless grind of machinery somewhere far below. But lately there's been a new sound, or maybe the absence of one. Rats. They've gone missing. Doesn't sound like much, not to outsiders. To us, it's everything. Rats are as constant as the ash that rains from the hive above. They feed on the dead, the living, on whatever the hive vomits into its gutters. When they vanish, it means something worse has taken their place. The first disappearance came 2 nights after the enforcer raid. Jarek noticed it first. He's always sharp, hears things no one else does, sees details the rest of us miss. He came back from patrol, face pale under the grime, saying he'd walked 3 clicks of tunnel without seeing so much as a rat tail. No squeaks, no nests. Just silence. Kargan didn't believe him at first, called it exhaustion. But then Rhine swore the sump river he was guarding had been still all night. No ripples, no feeding. That's not right. Something always feeds in the sump. Always. By the 4th night, one of our Juves was gone. No blood, no scream, no struggle, just vanished from his post. We found his last pistol lying on the floor beside a tunnel wall, still fully charged. No ganger drops his weapon, not even in death. I volunteered to track the trail, knife in hand, auspex humming faintly. I followed the Juve's last steps into the dark. At first nothing. Just rusted gantries, dripping pipes, echoes of my own boots. Then I saw it. The wall was wrong. Not carved, not rusted. Gnawed. Steel chewed like bone. The edges glistened wet and sharp, as if something had eaten its way through ferrocrete. The others didn't believe me when I told them. Kargan said maybe a sump beast broke through, but even he didn't sound convinced. Beasts don't leave clean tunnels behind. Beasts don't take gangers without leaving gore. That night, none of us slept. We kept the lumen strips burning bright, though their flicker grew weaker by the hour. Every time the shadows stretched, I swore I saw movement, shapes too long for men, too fast for sump rats. Jarek was the one who said it out loud. Something's in the walls. We laughed it off. Nervous laughter, the kind that chokes in your throat. But none of us denied it. We'd all heard it now. Scratching, skittering, a chorus of claws dragging across steel, moving in patterns too deliberate to be random. Rhine swore he saw eyes watching from a vent, said they glowed faint like dying embers. The Juves mocked him, but none of them dared check the vent themselves. Kargan ordered double watches, weapons always loaded, safeties off. No one goes alone, not anymore. But even as we prepared, the Hive reminded us who held the power. During the next patrol, the lumen strips died, one by one, like candles snuffed in a void. We stood in pitch black, every sense straining. The scratching grew louder, closer. Then, just as suddenly, the lights flickered back on. Nothing. No movement, no shadows out of place. Only the Underhive wall was wet, freshly wet. I tell myself it's the Hive playing tricks, machines groaning, sump gas echoing through ducts. But the truth is uglier, and we all know it. Something has burrowed into Necromunda's bones. Something hungry. When rats in the walls vanish, it means the Hive is changing. And in Necromunda, change always comes with blood. Still with us in the darkness? Hit that like button if this tale chills your soul.
The first time I saw them, I thought my mind was breaking. That's how it starts, when the warp leaves its fingerprints. You doubt your own eyes, your own ears. But the truth burns through denial like promethium through flesh. It was on a patrol, 3 levels below our bolt hole, in tunnels we'd never walked before. Jarek had picked up faint vox chatter, voices speaking in broken, low Gothic, like half-forgotten hymns. We followed the echoes, weapons drawn, moving in pairs like Kargan drilled into us. Always 2, never 1. Alone is death in the Underhive. The tunnels stank of burned oil and blood, fresher than the rust sweat dripping from the walls. Symbols smeared in red-black filth marked the ferrocrete. Jagged spirals, crude skulls. signs no sane man should follow. The Juves muttered prayers under their breath, their hands trembling on lasguns. Then we saw them. At first, they looked like gangers. Patchwork armor, scavenged weapons, gang colors stripped and replaced with rags daubed in blood. But their eyes glowed faint like dying embers. And when they spoke, it wasn't in any tongue I knew. Words slid from their mouth like oil, wrong and heavy, echoing too loud in the confined tunnels. They called themselves the Ash Judged. I learned that later. In the moment, all I knew was terror. One of them raised his hands and the lumen strips above us dimmed as if strangled. The air grew hot, suffocating, the stink of ozone stinging my lungs. Then shapes shimmered into being around them, shadows that moved like flesh, teeth gnashing in silence, eyes opening in the dark. Psychers, warp-touched filth. I didn't think, I just fired. My auto pistol spat rounds into the nearest one, tearing through rags and meat. He staggered but didn't fall. Instead, he screamed, a sound that wasn't sound, that clawed at the back of my skull. Rhine dropped to his knees, clutching his ears, blood pouring from his nose. Kargan bellowed orders, his stubber roaring in answer. Jarek picked targets with cold precision, laser beams cutting through the gloom. The Juves panicked, some firing wild, some frozen in place. I hacked forward with my knife, shoving past the screaming, past the shadows, until I was face to face with one of them. Up close, his skin writhed like it wasn't his own. Tattoos shifted across his flesh, symbols crawling as if alive. His mouth split too wide when he grinned, showing teeth filed to points. He swung a blade dripping with ichor, and I met it with mine, sparks spraying as steel kissed steel. I drove my knife into his throat. He gurgled, spat black blood, and collapsed, but the shadows didn't fade. They shrieked, tearing at the edges of reality, gnashing at us even as their master died. Somehow we survived. Maybe the Emperor's hand, though I doubt he ever looks this deep. More likely it was Kargan's fury and Jarek's calm. When the last of the Ash-Judged fell, silence rushed back into the tunnel like a drowning man breaking the surface. But silence isn't comfort anymore. Not after that. We dragged Rhine back, half-conscious, ears bleeding. 2 Juves didn't make it. One vanished into the dark mid-fight. The other left as nothing but bones picked clean in moments. Back at the bolt hole, no one spoke for a long time. Then Kargan finally said the words none of us wanted to hear. Chaos. The Ash-Judged aren't just another gang. There's something worse. Something that shouldn't exist in Necromunda, but always does in shadows too deep for light. Warp-touched filth, whispering promises of power to the desperate. And the desperate always listen. I cleaned my blade long after the others slept. The blood didn't come off easy. It stuck, thick and oily, like it wanted to stay. Warp corruption spreads like a plague, and I fear we've just seen its first symptoms.
Loyalty is supposed to be the one thing you can count on in the Underhive. A ganger's word to his crew, a brother's oath to another. That's all we have when the houses treat us like tools and the guilders like cattle. But loyalty gets tested when the shadows grow teeth. And the shadows have been gnawing at us for weeks now. Rin's still half deaf from the Ash-Judge screams, but he refuses to leave his post. He sharpens his axe by the lumen's flicker, jaw set like stone. Jarek is quieter than usual, spending hours perched in high places, eyes on the dark, finger caressing the trigger of his long last like it's the only thing keeping him sane. The Juves, they're breaking. Whispers of running, of joining another gang, of swearing fealty to the guilders for scraps. Kargan hears every word, even when it's whispered in the dark, and he answers with silence, which is worse than rage. Silence means he's thinking. And when Kargan thinks too long, blood follows. The breaking point comes over a ration crate. Food's low, always low. We've been chewing recycled protein packs, the taste of ash and fungus. One Juve, Bran, snatches a strip meant for Ren, stuffing it down his throat before anyone can stop him. Ren doesn't hesitate. He smashes Bran's skull against the wall so hard the boy drops limp. Bahab goes silent. For a heartbeat, all I hear is the drip of water and the rasp of my own breath. Then the Jews erupt, screaming, shoving, weapons half raised. I step between them, blade drawn, and snarl. Back down or I'll gut the lot of you. My voice carries, low and steady, like Kargan's taught me. They freeze, not because they fear me more than hunger, but because they know hesitation means death in the Underhive. Kargan ends it, one shot from his stubber into the ceiling, dust and rust raining down. He growls, "We fight each other and the Hive eats us whole. You want to live? Then bleed for your brothers, not against them." Bran's corpse gets dragged to the sump. No one says a prayer, no one even looks. That's loyalty in the Hive. One moment sacred, the next disposable. But later, I see it. One of the Jews, can't tell which, shadows hide faces too well. Kneeling near the sump, murmuring words that don't sound like any prayer I know. Words oily and thick, like the chants of the ash judged. I grip my pistol, ready to end it then and there. But when the Juve turns, his eyes look normal, frightened, human. I tell myself I imagined it, but the memory clings like ash to sweat. That night, Kargan pulls me aside. His voice is rougher than usual, but steady. He says, "We're marked, not just by houses, not just by enforcers, something deeper. It'll test us, and when it does, you watch who flinches." I nod, though his words carve at my gut. Because I already know, loyalty doesn't survive the warp. It breaks, rots, twists. And if one of ours has already started listening to those whispers, then our war isn't just with rival gangs anymore. It's with each other. The tension builds. Subscribe to witness more tales from the dark millennium.
Necromunda is a graveyard with lungs. The Hive breathes, exhales smog and smoke, inhales the stench of the dead. Whole levels collapse into forgotten tombs, tunnels caved in and swallowed, habs sealed with their occupants still screaming inside. We thought we knew death, that it was just another shadow in a city of corpses. But the Ashed Judged proved us wrong. 2 days after Bran's death, they came back. Not many, 6, maybe 7 shapes moving through the gloom, but enough to shake us from our false sense of safety. They didn't charge like gangers hungry for territory. They stalked, patient as predators, their chanting growing louder as we scrambled to form a firing line. This time, we were ready. Jarek was perched high, last beam slicing through the dark to take the first one in the skull. He dropped without a sound. Rin roared like a hive beast, swinging his axe so hard the tunnel shook with each impact. I took position at the front with Kargan, my pistol bucking in my grip, knife glinting in the lumen's weak glow. The fight was nothing like a gang clash. No curses, no boasts, no laughter at the kill. Just silence from them, and screams that weren't theirs, voices echoing in the air that didn't belong to anyone alive. One of the Ashe-Judged raised a hand, and the walls bled rust, trickling down in rivulets that steamed when they hit the ground. Another whispered, and the Juves faltered, clutching their heads as if something was clawing at their brains. But we didn't break. Not then. Kargan's stubber thundered, chewing through two at once. Rin cleaved a third in half, the corpse twitching long after its death. I buried my knife in another's chest, only for him to smile as black ichor bubbled from the wound. I twisted, pulled free, and shot him point blank until he stopped twitching. When it was done, the tunnel floor was slick with their filth, the air still humming with echoes. Jarek dropped from his perch, silent, eyes scanning the corpses like he expected them to rise again. We should have burned the bodies. Emperor, help me, we should have. But the Hive doesn't offer luxuries like fire or time. We dragged them into a collapse shaft, let the Hive swallow them whole. Out of sight, out of mind. That's how gangers survive. But the warp doesn't forget, and neither did we. That night, no one slept. Even the Juves kept their weapons close, eyes darting at every shadow. I lay awake, listening to the Hive's endless groans, and thought of the Ashe-Judged silence. Not fear, not rage, just devotion. Whatever god they served, they gave themselves wholly to it, and that terrified me more than their blades or their whispers. Because devotion like that spreads, it infects. I saw Rin sharpening his axe, muttering under his breath. I heard Jarek whispering numbers over and over like a litany. And in the dark, I felt eyes on me, watching, waiting. Death has always been a companion in the Underhive, but this felt different. Death we could fight. Death we could spit in the eye and carve a path through. What hunted us now wasn't death. It was something worse, something endless, something hungry. And the Ashe-Judged were only its heralds.
The next week blurred into a fever dream of blood and whispers. The Ashe-Judged didn't hit us again outright, not like before. Instead, they stalked us, harried us, left tokens where we'd walk, skulls cracked open and smeared with ash, scraps of parchment scrawled in languages no tongue should shape, candles burning with black flames that spat sparks of shadow. Every time we moved bolt holes, they found us. Every time we tried to push into new tunnels, they were waiting, watching from the dark. Not many. Never more than a glimpse, but enough to wear us down. Paranoia settled in like mold on damp steel. The Juves were the first to crack. One slit his own wrists after waking from a nightmare, whispering that the shadows had already claimed his blood. Another vanished while on watch, just gone, his laser gun still humming faint where it lay on the ferrocrete. Rhine grew harsher, quicker to anger, the haft of his axe dripping blood not just from our enemies, but from anyone who dared talk back. Jarek's whispers grew louder, no longer just numbers, but fragments of words I couldn't understand, muttered as he cleaned his rifle, eyes glassy. And me? I caught myself listening, not to them, but to the silence between their words, to the pull at the edge of hearing, like someone speaking from another room. I clenched my teeth until they bled, forced my mind to prayers I didn't believe. The Emperor protects, they say, but in Necromunda's shadows, it feels more like he's forgotten. Kargan saw it all. His voice grew like gravel grinding steel, his words clipped, his orders absolute. He drove us harder than ever, every patrol a gauntlet, every watch shift doubled. When one Jew faltered, Kargan shot him through the kneecap and left him screaming in the sump tunnels. Weakness spreads, he told us. Better to cut it out than let it rot the whole. And still, the rot spread. The breaking point came when we found a bolt hole marked. The lumen strips inside flickered with a sickly green glow, and symbols painted in blood coated the walls. Piles of meat, what used to be rats, dogs, maybe even people, lay stacked in the corners, carved into patterns I couldn't look at without feeling bile rise in my throat. On the far wall, one word burned in black fire: loyalty. The flames hissed, but they didn't consume. They just burned, eternal and wrong, casting shadows that moved against the light. The Juves broke then, screaming. Some fired into the walls, others dropped weapons and bolted. Ryan roared after them, but even he hesitated when the fire spelled out another word, letter by letter, across the Ferrocrete. Kargan. The name lingered, smoking, a curse written in the warp itself. Kargan didn't flinch. He raised his stubber, fired into the flame until the barrel smoked. The fire guttered, then died, leaving nothing but scorched stone. Then he turned to us, his face unreadable in the gloom. He said, "Stay loyal, or burn." No one answered. We just followed, hollow-eyed, the silence heavier than gunmetal. But in the corner of my sight, I thought I saw it. One of the Juves smiling in the shadows, lips moving in silent prayer. And in that moment, I knew. Loyalty was already gone.
You don't notice the Hive's silence until it's forced on you. Normally, the Underhive is never still. The grind of gears in the walls, the drip of sump water, the crackle of distant gunfire. A heartbeat of the machine city that never stops. But when the Ash Judged came for us the third time, the Hive went quiet, like it was holding its breath. We'd holed up in a half-collapsed manufactorum, rusted assembly lines sprawled like the skeletons of long-dead titans. The Juves huddled near the center, clutching weapons with white-knuckled hands. Rhine patrolled the perimeter, axe gleaming in lumen light. Jarek crouched high on a gantry, his long les sight sweeping the shadows. Kargan paced slow, stubber loose in his grip, but eyes sharp as razors. I sat cleaning my pistol. The scratches on its surface told stories of fights past, gangs we'd gutted, lives we'd snuffed. It should have comforted me. Instead, the metal felt colder than ever, like it knew it would fail me when I needed it most. Then it came. The hum, low at first, a vibration through the Ferrocrete, rising until it set teeth on edge. The lumen strips flickered, dimmed, then flared sickly green. The Ash Judged stepped from the dark, not 6, not 7, dozens. Their rags stank of old blood, their eyes glowing faint like dying embers. They didn't shout.
didn't rush. They advanced in silence, chanting with mouths that moved, but voices that echoed from the walls instead of their throats. Jarek fired first, clean, precise, a las beam lancing through one skull. The corpse fell, but two more took its place. Rhine bellowed, charging into them, his axe cleaving limbs like paper. I emptied my pistol, each shot finding flesh, each kill feeling hollow. But for every one we dropped, 3 more stepped from the dark. Then the air thickened. My chest heaved, lungs refusing to fill. Shadows writhed along the walls, stretching, growing teeth. One Juve screamed as something invisible tore him upward, vanishing into the black above. Another fired wild, only to have his own bullets curve back, punching holes through his gut. Kargan roared over it all, his stubber thundering, the barrel glowing red. He didn't falter, didn't slow, even as the enemy pressed closer, even as whispers clawed at our skulls. I fought like a madman, knife flashing, pistol cracking, blood spraying hot across my face. My blade slid into a throat that writhed under my hand, flesh shifting like liquid, symbols crawling from skin to steel. I ripped free, screaming curses I didn't know I remembered. We held. Emperor help me, we held. The manufactorum floor was a charnel pit when the last of them fell. Shadows fled, the hum died, and silence rushed back in. Only 3 Juves still breathed, and one was sobbing like a child. Rhine's armor dripped with gore, his chest heaving. Jarek's eyes were blank, staring at nothing, his lips still whispering numbers. Kargan stood in the center, smoke rising from his weapon, his gaze sweeping the carnage. This is nothing, he spat. A taste. The Hive will drown in this filth if we don't cut it out at the root. I wanted to ask him where the root was. I wanted to scream that we couldn't fight shadows and whispers, but my throat was raw, my mind too frayed. Because I'd heard it too, beneath the hum, beneath the screams, a voice. Not theirs, not human. It called my name, and part of me wanted to answer.
Kargan's words hung in the stale air long after the last ash-judged corpse stopped twitching. Cut it out at the root, he'd said. But roots run deep in Necromunda, deeper than any ganger can dig. And yet, somehow, he knew where to go. He led us into the sump tunnels, further down than I'd ever dared walk, past rusted ladders slick with mold, past water thick as sludge, past bones sunk half into the muck. The hive above faded, the rumblings of machinery becoming muffled groans, then silence. Down here the air was heavy, wet with rot, each breath tasting like rusted iron. The Jews balked at first. One refused outright, muttering prayers under his breath, his fingers tracing the aquila burned into his skin. Kargan didn't argue. He just put a stub round through the boy's knee and left him there howling until the dark swallowed the sound. Loyalty, Kargan said, is survival, and survival doesn't wait for weakness. We marched on, torches hissing against the damp. Every step echoed too loud, as if the tunnels themselves were listening. And always those whispers at the edge of hearing. I kept one hand tight on my pistol, the other on the knife at my belt, my teeth grinding as if I could chew the voices away. Hours passed, maybe more. Time lost meaning in the sump's depths. We stumbled into chambers lined with skulls fused into the ferrocrete, empty sockets staring as we passed. Pools of black water rippled without touch.
Symbols burned faint on the walls, glowing and fading like embers gasping their last. Then we found it. A door. Not steel, not wood, something else. Something alive. Flesh stretched across a frame of rusted metal, pulsing faint, veins throbbing as if blood still ran beneath. It reeked of ash and bile, the stench thick enough to choke. Carved into its surface were words in a language none of us knew, yet all of us understood. Open. The Juves broke then, screaming, scrambling to flee back the way we'd come. Ren cut one down before he took 3 steps. The other vanished into the dark, his screams fading fast. Jarek stood frozen, his rifle hanging loose, eyes locked on the door. His lips moved, whispering the same numbers he'd clung to for weeks, but the numbers didn't stop. They twisted, bent, became something else, syllables that clawed at my ears. And Kargan, he didn't hesitate. He placed a hand on the door. The flesh quivered, shuddered like it was in pain or pleasure. A sound rose from it, not a groan, not a cry, but something between. The whispers surged louder, flooding the tunnel, filling my skull until I staggered. I screamed for Kargan to stop, but my voice drowned in the sound. The door began to open. A seam split down its center, oozing black ichor, peeling back to reveal nothing but void. A darkness deeper than the Hive's shadow, deeper than any starless night. It wasn't absence, it was hunger, waiting to swallow. Kargan turned then, and for the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Not terror, not defeat, fear that he had found exactly what he sought. And I realized too late, the Ash Judged weren't chasing us, they were herding us, driving us to the root, to this. The Hive itself had betrayed us.
The door pulsed, each beat like a heartbeat echoing through the ferrocrete. The void beyond it breathed, sucking the air from the tunnel, pulling us closer with every inhale. My torch guttered, the flame bending toward the dark like it longed to be consumed. I staggered back, pistol raised, though I knew bullets meant nothing here. Beside me, Ryan planted his boots firm, axe clenched, veins bulging in his neck. He roared defiance, but even his voice cracked under the weight of the sound. Jarek, Emperor, help me. Jarek stepped forward. His lips moved in rhythm with the whispers, his eyes rolled back, pupils swallowed in white. His las rifle clattered to the ground, forgotten, as he reached for the void with both hands like a child begging for his mother's embrace. I lunged, grabbing his arm, but the moment my skin touched his, I felt it. The pull. A warmth at first, then a flood, pouring through me. Voices, promises, truths I should not know. My parents' faces, my dead brothers all whispering my name. My knees buckled. My pistol slipped from my grip. Then Kargan's voice cut through, sharp as steel. "Stand, you dogs! The Hive doesn't forgive the weak." He dragged me back, shoving Jarek aside, but Jarek didn't fight. He only laughed, a hollow sound, and threw himself into the void. The darkness swallowed him whole. The whispers surged, triumphant, filling the chamber with words too vast for human tongues. The flesh door yawned wider. From within, shapes stirred, long-limbed, many-eyed, gnashing things not yet fully formed. Shadows, but with weight, pressing against reality like a knife against skin. Kargan roared, emptying his stubber into the dark. Each round sparked as if hitting steel, vanishing without a trace. Ryan charged, axe flashing, hacking into the flesh frame itself. Black ichor sprayed, steaming where it touched. The door shrieked, a sound not made for human ears, a sound that made my skull feel like it would split apart. I forced my body to move, snatched my pistol from the ground and fired until the magazine clicked dry. Bullets tore chunks of quivering flesh, but the door only shuddered, healing as fast as we wounded it. Then the hive itself reacted. Pipes burst overhead, flooding the chamber with boiling sump water. The walls groaned, buckled, chunks of ferrocrete crashing down. The hive wanted this gone. It was cutting out the infection the only way it knew, by burying it. "Run," Kargan bellowed, seizing Ryan by the collar. We sprinted, the tunnel collapsing behind us, shadows lashing out, clawing at our heels. One Juve screamed as a tendril wrapped his leg, dragging him back. His cries cut off in an instant. I didn't look back. Couldn't. My lungs burned, my legs screamed, but I ran until the tunnel widened and fresh air hit my face. The collapse thundered behind us, a roar of stone and steel crushing the flesh door, sealing it in tomb-like silence. We collapsed in the filth, gasping, bleeding, alive. Just 3 of us now. Kargan, Ryan, and me. The rest were gone, swallowed by the hive, or worse. Kargan spat blood and looked at me with eyes like iron. "It's not over," he said. "That wasn't the root. That was just a seed." The words chilled me worse than the void's whispers, because I knew he was right. Seeds grow.
After the flesh door, nothing felt real anymore. The hive breathed differently, its walls groaning like they carried secrets meant only for the dead. Every tunnel looked the same, but I knew we weren't walking familiar paths anymore. It felt like the city itself was shifting underfoot, guiding us or trapping us. We made camp in an abandoned spire vent, the air thick with rust and the stench of burned promethium. Rhine sat apart, his axe across his knees, sharpening it with manic precision. His lips moved, whispering words that weren't prayers but didn't sound like curses either. I watched the sparks leap from his blade, each one hanging too long in the air before fading. Kargan paced like a caged beast. He barely slept now, eyes burning red with exhaustion, but his body relentless, fueled by something more than will. He muttered plans aloud, hunting routes, ambush points, raids on ash-judged nests that might not even exist. He wasn't leading anymore. He was consumed. And me? I lay awake, staring into the dark, waiting for whispers that never came. The silence was worse. It made me wonder if I'd been abandoned, or if the shadows were only biding their time. The breaking came on the 3rd night. Rhine snapped. It started with laughter, low, broken chuckles that grew into roars echoing through the spire. He stood, axe raised high, eyes blazing with ember glow. The same glow I'd seen in the ash-judged. He bellowed words I didn't understand, syllables that crawled like insects under my skin. Kargan moved first, his stubber already raised. He fired 3 rounds into Rhine's chest. The giant staggered, blood spraying, but he didn't fall. He roared louder, swinging his axe in an arc that split the air with force enough to shake the ferrocrete. I ducked, firing wild, shots sparking off metal. Kargan kept shooting, each round tearing chunks of flesh that smoked instead of bleeding. Rhine charged unstoppable, smashing machinery aside like it was paper.
Kargan met him head-on. Stubber empty, he drew a blade and rammed it into Ryan's gut, even as the axe came down. The strike split Kargan's arm to the bone, blood spraying hot across my face, but he didn't let go. He drove the blade deeper, snarling like an animal, until Ryan finally shuddered and collapsed, his body spasming, his whispers dying with him. Silence followed. Just silence, thick and heavy. Kargan fell to one knee, clutching his ruined arm. His breath rattled, but his eyes stayed sharp, fixed on Ryan's corpse. "You saw it. Chaos takes root in loyalty, even him." I nodded, though bile burned my throat. Ryan had been our wall, our hammer, our brother. And now he was just another carcass in the Hive's endless grave. We burned him. It took the last of our promethium, but Kargan insisted. Flames devoured flesh and steel alike, the smoke thick and choking, carrying a stench that clung to our lungs. When it was done, Kargan looked at me, his face carved from stone. "We keep moving. If this spreads, the Hive's lost already. We'll root it out, or we'll die trying." I wanted to believe him, but as the flames died, I thought I saw shapes in the smoke, shadows dancing, smiling, whispering with voices I almost recognized. Seeds grow. And some fires don't cleanse, they feed.
We were only two now, Kargan and me, brothers forged by ash and blood, but shadows had stripped us bare. The Hive no longer felt like steel and stone, it felt alive, watching, breathing, waiting. Kargan pressed on, his wounded arm bound in filthy rags, his stubber slung useless at his side. He carried only a blade now, jagged and blackened from the fight with Ryan. Every step he took was deliberate, as though he knew exactly where he was going. I followed, because there was nothing else to do. To turn back was death, to stop was madness. The sump tunnels opened into a cavern vast as a cathedral, stalactites dripping filth like tears. In its center rose a spire of bone and scrap, fused together in shapes that made my eyes ache. At its peak burned a flame, not a fire, but shadow, bending the air around it, pulsing in rhythm with the whispers we'd been chasing since the start. The ash judged knelt at its base, dozens of them, swaying, chanting in tongues that bled from the walls themselves. Their leader stood tall, robed in rags stitched from skin, a staff of rusted rebar crowned with a human skull. His eyes burned like coals. Kargan didn't hesitate. He strode forward, his voice booming over the chant. "You think the Hive belongs to you. You're wrong. It belongs to the strong, to those who bleed for it." The ash judged turned as one, their chant breaking into hisses, blades rising. The leader lifted his staff, the shadow flame flaring. I should have run. Emperor help me. I should have. But something rooted me there, pistol shaking in my grip. The whispers clawed at my skull, promising power, survival, dominion. The fight was a blur of steel and blood. Kargan moved like a beast, blade flashing, cutting down 3, 4, 5 of them in gory arcs. I fired until the pistol clicked dry, then drew my knife, every strike born of terror more than skill.
Bodies fell, but the Ash Judge didn't falter. They didn't scream, they just pressed closer, chanting louder even as they died. Then the leader raised his staff, and the shadow flame roared. The cavern trembled, the spire groaning like it was alive. From the fire crawled things, shapes half-formed, claws dripping black ichor, eyes opening and closing across their skin. Warp spawn. Kargan roared, hurling himself at the leader. Their blades clashed, sparks flying. The staff struck his chest, searing flesh, but Kargan didn't stop. He drove his knife into the robed figure's throat, twisting until the skull atop the staff cracked. The leader gurgled, fell, and the shadow flame flickered. The creature screamed, their forms unraveling, sucked back into the void. The Ash Judge wailed as their bodies convulsed, bursting into ash that stank of burnt oil. The cavern shook harder, the spire collapsing piece by piece. Kargan stood in the ruin, his body broken, blood pouring, but his eyes blazing. He looked at me and forced a grin, teeth red. He rasped, "We cut the root. The hive. It will breathe again." Then the spire gave way, crushing him in a storm of bone and steel. I ran. Emperor, forgive me. I ran. Through collapsing tunnels, through smoke and dust, until I clawed my way into the hive's upper dark. I don't know how long I stumbled, half dead, lungs raw, ears ringing, but I lived. And the hive still whispers. I survived where others didn't. That's supposed to mean something in Necromunda, that I was stronger, sharper, more loyal. But when I close my eyes, I don't see strength. I see shadows gnawing at the walls of reality. I hear whispers that never leave. I smell the ash of brothers burned. Kargan died believing he had cut the root. Maybe he did. Maybe the Ash Judge will scatter without their leader, their warped fire snuffed out. But seeds scatter too, and Necromunda's soil is rich with desperation. It doesn't take much for corruption to take hold here. Just a whisper in the dark, a promise of more than this life of hunger and blood. I carry scars no Medicae can heal, not just the wounds carved into my flesh, but the truth carved into my mind, that loyalty can rot, that brothers can turn, and that the hive itself might conspire with the warp, birthing horrors in its shadows, and worst of all, that I listened. For a moment, I listened, and part of me wanted to answer.
So, what's it like, being a hive ganger, surviving under Necromunda's shadows? It's living with death pressed against your skin. It's walking tunnels where every whisper might be your end. It's fighting, killing, bleeding beside brothers, only to watch them twist into something not human anymore. It's surviving, yes, but survival here isn't triumph. It's just another sentence, another day in a hive that feeds on souls like us. The Emperor protects, they say. Maybe he does, for those high above, where light still reaches. But in the Underhive, down here, it's only the shadows that watch. And they never blink.